Stock struggling for direction before jumping later in the day. This as investors seem to be somewhat, listen, we're not just sure where this whole China thing is going to go, but a lot of hopes, more increasing hopes that we could actually see an end to the trade battle. U.S. and Chinese officials kicked off a two-day meeting in Beijing today. This is their first face-to-face meeting since President Trump and Xi agreed to that 90-day truce. And, well, it comes just a few days after Apple had that earnings release where they sort of blamed China's economy and then sort of wink, wink, the tariff battle itself. The big question, of course, right now, can the next 48 hours actually change the world? Joining me now, president of Point View Wealth Management, David Dietz, the founder of Point Bridge Capital, Hal Lambert, and senior research fellow for Mercatus Center, Veronique DeRugi. Veronique, let me start with you. It's been a long time. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So what are your thoughts with respect to maybe a deal that people can somewhat believe in? You know, there's always going to be a certain degree of skepticism, but maybe a deal actually happening that really changes our trade relationship with China.
I think the fact that they're meeting in person is a very good thing. I don't think we should expect that they are going to announce that they have a deal in place already. I think it's going to take a few months probably to unfold and for them to iron out the differences. But this is a very good sign. And by the way, there's really nothing I want more than us putting an end to this trade war. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for 9 months. As we've seen, it's actually quite hard because while the Chinese are definitely hurting and probably hurting much more than we are, our economy are so intertwined that we're hurting, not to mention that the tariffs are hurting, our consumers. So it is going to be important that we put an end to this trade war. But I'd like to point out one inconsistency in the administration's approach. It's like for all these months, I mean, the administration has been complaining about China's use of state-owned enterprises and their command and control economy, high subsidies towards special industries, and yet a lot of our demands actually revolve in having the Chinese use more of these state-owned enterprises to buy our soybeans and our liquefied gas. And I wonder whether, in effect, we're pushing China to be even more centralized, and that worries me.
You know, Hal, I'm not surprised it's taking this long. We're talking about a 3-decade problem,
yes.
And it's extraordinarily complicated. A year ago, most experts said China would win this, that it was no big deal for them, even their Politburo and their president. And all that seems to have changed. So there seems to be a greater sense of urgency. For you, what would victory look like, and what would the response be for the markets?
For me?
No, for Hal Lambert.
Well, look.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, look, I don't see us getting a trade deal announced certainly in the next few days, and I don't quite frankly see it happening by the March deadline unless it's just kind of surface level, trade imbalance. I mean, we can correct the trade imbalance with some surface level deal, but what we're asking for is a structural change. And let's be clear, we're asking the Chinese to change their entire economic model, which is, as we just discussed, a top-down, led by the government, communist-led, picking winners and losers. That's what we're asking them to change, and that's not going to happen by March. So the only thing that happens by March is maybe a surface level deal on trade imbalance, and that would be more of a Steve Mnuchin type deal. But, Bob Lighthizer is the U.S. trade representative. He wants a lot more here. So if we can get a lot more, that would be great. I don't see it happening by March. But I will say this, if we get any kind of deal announced,
sure,
the markets will go higher.
Sure.
I mean, that's without a doubt.
It seems like there will be a series of announcements, right? We're not going to have the whole thing papered and ready to go and resolve all of these major differences. But, a moment ago, Carl Icahn was on with Neil Cavuto, and he expressed his hope, really saying that we must get something done, and we should get it done soon. Let's take a listen.
I feel strongly about China. I think that it's mandatory that we do a deal with China and work it out. I think Donald Trump understands. Hopefully, he understands that how important it is.
I mean, David, President Trump obviously understands how important it is. He's the one who pushed back on this when everyone told him not to. And now I hear economists, I read different things, and people are starting to come around to the fact that maybe something can be done. The grand bargain won't be struck in the next 90 days, but enough of a step pushing us towards something that ultimately is livable.
Yeah, absolutely. What I would like to see is at least a joint declaration as to what the issues are. So certainly we've been talking about tariff levels, but we have to go beyond that. We have to talk about intellectual property protection. We have to talk about access by American companies into China. And on top of that, we need to talk about how we're going to measure whether they're in compliance as to whatever they agree upon. If we could get some statement as to these are the things we both agree we're working on, I think that will move markets.
Veronique, we got less than a minute, but I know you wanted to jump back in. I'll give you the final word.
No, I think it's going to be hard. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why we're in this situation in the first place. There's been a lot of complacency, but I think that maybe there was a lot of optimism about the U.S. being able to crush this very, very quickly. I mean, that's what I heard more than saying China was going to.
I didn't hear that. Almost all the experts came on my show and said we were going to lose.
The president said, trade wars are easy to win.
I mean, outside of President Trump. I'm talking about the economist.
And so I think it's going to be hard, but obviously, hopefully, like a statement of what needs to happen is actually, I think, would be a great step. And again, just the fact that they're continuing the debate, the conversation, is an important thing. And if that continues, I think it's going to take a while before we get really deep down reforms.
Right.
It's going to be good all around.
I think that's where we all agree. In the next 90 days, perhaps even sooner, we'll get those kind of statements that lend us to believe that negotiations go on and perhaps we'll ultimately get something that's livable. Hal, I know you want to get in, buddy, but we've run out of time. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Happy New Year to you. Hey, David, Veronique, Hal, thank you all very much.